Now, I gave you a handout, right? And I want you to, I wanted you to have that information because it's real important information. It's real important information based on the content that we discuss in here every week. It's really important in regards to where we're at right now. I'm talking about the ages and stages of development, and a lot of the focus that you guys tend to put has to do with your child, and that's great. That's great that you're looking at that information and looking at where your child is. But what's most important is that you're taking this information and looking at your own development. This is real important because Tracy used a model, and she used it with Ricardo?
Yes.
Remember the illustration that she put, the circle? She had you come up here and she said, and she put the different influences you had in your life,
right,
music and those kind of things. These things are real important. When I asked the question last week, had anybody had a song that they would hear, that they would go through some emotions about, most of you said no. Most of you said no.
Me too.
But again, what it goes back to is, look at who just said that I can recall. Most of us are 40 plus. So a lot of things have to do with significant events in different stages of age. For me, my most significant events happened in early childhood. Parental separation impacted me greatly. Didn't realize it until I was like 34, 35. Somebody was talking about recovery earlier. If I wake up tomorrow, by God's grace and mercy, I'll have 19 years from that lifestyle. And I say all that to say that it took that process for me to begin to learn some things about myself. This whole course of class that we had today, I heard repeatedly the dissatisfaction with some of the things that she's doing. The dissatisfaction with the courts. Hear a lot of that all the time. And for nearly 19 years of being in human services, I've heard it throughout that process too. And a lot of it has to do with an inability to manage certain areas of our life. When you look at the id, the ego, and the super-ego, those are very significant to who you are. Anybody familiar with Johari's window? I'm going to bring that in next week. But there are things that happen consciously, unconsciously, and there's something even below the surface of that. There are things that we see, like you mentioned. What did you just say about when I said something about the writing it down? What did you say?
I did it.
But what did you say in regards to me?
Remember?
Said you be like.
You be like that all the time.
Okay. Ricardo, remember you said something earlier about your child.
Yes.
What did you say about your child in regards to you?
She reminds me of me. She's a thinker.
She's a thinker. So you identify something outside of yourself. Nothing wrong with that. You identify something having to do with your child, right? And the likeness to you. All the conflicts and controversy that you had with your mother of your child, what does that say? 46 chromosomes, right? 23 belong to who?
Her.
And 23 belong to who?
Me.
Okay, what does that mean?
She both of them.
She both of you. So when you say to a child, because I heard this through all through my childhood, you're just like your father. You look just like him. You're going to be just like him. So I heard all that as a child. Now, if y'all two are not together, and there's nothing but malice and resentment towards both of you, what does that say about me? If you don't like her, and she doesn't like you, and you say that I'm just like him, she says that I'm just like you, what does that say about me?
I'm not liked by nobody.
Right.
The question, it begs the question, well, who do you like? Because you don't like me either. You don't like me either. A child internalizes that in many different ways, depending on the first child, middle child, last child. All that stuff is very significant as well. So you want to do some research on middle child behavior, first child behavior, the third child behavior, and the fourth child, because the third actually becomes the middle in some instances. You need to start looking at all those things. But what you say to a child is very significant to their growth and development. Their self-concept. Their self-concept. Now I want you to think back for a minute about some of the things, and I don't need you to respond, I just want you to think about it for a minute. I want you to think about some of the things that were said to you by both parents. If both parents weren't available during the courses of raising, I understand that. But if there was ever any interaction, I want you to remember, to the best of your ability, what it felt like when you had to visit with the parent who was not the primary custodial parent. I want you to take a look at how you react even today towards one, if not both of the parents, for things that took place. Because we minimize parental separation and its impact on the child. We minimize it greatly. And we sit here for a whole, from 6:45 to 7:45, and what did you talk primarily about?
Sure.
The system in the mother. Yeah.
Primarily. And that's the same kind of interaction and dialogue you have with the mother whenever you talk to her. You say what you want, and it's always about what I want. And I talked to you guys before about the win-win situation as opposed to a win-lose situation. All of this has to do with how you were groomed coming up. All of it. Everything. I was looking at something the other day. I want to show you this. I want you to tell me what this is. What is that?
Eyes.
No, they're two entirely different things. They're two entirely different things.
Chromosomes?
Huh?
Oh, just the sperm and egg.
Oh, what's that?
That baby's in the womb.
Okay.
Now that's a sperm going to the egg and a finger poking the eye.
Okay, now these are two different things here. Right? They're two different things. I'm going to give you something to look at. This is a planet. And that's another planet. So for instance, we'll say this is Earth. What's the closest planet to the Earth?
Mars, Venus.
Okay. Around us is gases, right? So anything entering to the atmosphere of Earth dissipates. It burns, coming into the atmosphere, which is why this is a rocket. The rocket breaks off at certain points because it has different capacities of heat as it's coming into, right? Now, what's this?
Sperm going into the egg.
But what's that?
That's the nucleus.
Okay. So this would actually be where the chromosomes are, because when the connection is made, the chromosomes kind of get together. But look at the two. If you've ever seen inside of here, what's inside of here is what? The same thing that's here. The chromosome is carrying the chromosomes, right? The outer layer, there's an outer layer, and then there's an inner layer, right, which is protecting that. But this will enter into the egg. There's another area inside the egg that it lays on, and it gets drawn into the egg. But what happens is anything else trying to get into there's something, a chemical that kills everything.
That makes it impermanent.
Similar to that of the Earth, right? Anything entering into the atmosphere, foreign, won't make it unless it is made. Now, the human being, right? Everything that you go through in life, right, affects you. If you get your heart broken, for instance, right, what happens? How do you react to anything else?
Put that wall up.
You put that wall up, right? Now, when you talk about the relationship, because science is real important, understanding self, because we're chemical. Everything that you do has something to do with chemical. Even this has no eyes. But in order for it to travel to this, to know where it is, it's a chemical coming off of this, guiding it that way. The same way when you meet somebody. It's the same exact way when you meet somebody. You're like, I'm feeling you. It's like, but it's something chemical that's happening inside of you that's drawing you to that person. But when you go back to childhood, you begin to look at your makeup. You're drawn to certain people for a reason. As a child, my parents separated early. So as I began to mature, I always hung around the old heads. Why?
Parents, it was
knowledge.
that parental
that was influenced by your parents.
Okay.
So you gravitated toward older people.
Good. Why was I graduating? Now males, we're talking about males specifically. Why was I gravitating?
Substituting.
What was I substituting?
That father figure.
Have examples to see by.
Hold on. What's your answer?
That father figure.
Looking for the father figure. What were you saying?
You see them as an example in your life.
Okay, it's an example.
Male.
Something that, I was going to say the same.
Male influence.
Male influence that you see.
Okay.
Oh, you're saying role model.
Okay. All of those things. Go ahead.
Well, fill that void.
Fill in that void. Now look, we just got 6 different answers. Now when the child enters into the world, right? You got to look at something here. While I'm in the womb, I'm in a world of my own. I'm in a world of my own. Even with eyes, the child cannot see because it's dark in the womb. Right? Now, how does the child see light? If you put your hand over your eyes, look up at the light, and put your hand over your eyes, you'll see darkness. If you move your hand, no matter if you're looking directly at the light or not, you'll see like a redness. Right? Much as like if the mother is sunbathing, you can see that, but can't make any kind of a distinction as to what it is. Same way with sound. Sound sounds muffled in the womb because the amniotic fluid and all those things around it. So the child is protected, but the child but the child is familiar with the voice of the mother because it's like harmonious. Because the child is inside the mother, even though it's still muffled, that voice is there. Same way with music. Same way with music. Music is very influential on the pregnancy. They even showed, there's a video that you can go on YouTube to see, they even showed the child responding to different music. They played different music. And they showed the child responding in the womb at a certain stage to the music. I forget what stage it was. But remember that I shared with you guys last week how during the course of my mother's pregnancy, she was physically abused by my father. Right? And I talked about the level of stress. Now, we also got to remind you about the chemical makeup of the individual. And as the mother eats fruit and all those good things, all that stuff goes where? So now there's also some taste buds developed at some point in time because they even showed in the video the child, because of the amniotic fluid and what's coming into. Also the behavior of the environment affects the mother in the same way. So I want you to begin to look at the relationships not just with you and the mother of your children or your child, and how you are engaging her right now, and what that's doing as far as impacting your child. Because as long as you put up barriers and impediments in her ability to be able to move forward in some areas of her life, you may very well be affecting her ability to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? More responsive to the needs of your child. Yeah. Because what you're doing is you're putting more stress on me. I'm already having to deal with the fact that I got to pay all these bills myself. I already have to deal with the fact that I have to deal with all these things with our child. Because this is our child. No matter what I say to you out of anger, this is our child. And in my heart, I'm saying that, yo, I really want you to participate. But in my mind is saying I want some other satisfaction. And I say heart because there's a diagram, there's another diagram I want to bring with you as well. Because when you talk about the id, the ego, and the super-ego, these things are very relevant in terms of the makeup of the human being. Top, middle, bottom. The id wants what it wants. Period. A lot of times what happens is, as you grow, you should be coming to a certain level of maturity and understanding about the world around you. Going back to being in the embryo, do you know how much of an impact it is when a child enters into the world? You have to think about that for a minute. I've been in the world all alone. Floating around, dancing, doing all kinds of stuff, and tasting this and tasting that all by myself. Inside of the womb. Now I come out into this environment. Like, wow, what the? All this new stuff. I've never seen all this stuff. And now sounds are louder, and there's a whole lot of activity going on. And now you're gone. You were there, you're gone. I depend on you. I depend on you as the Father. I depend on you. I remember hearing that muffled voice, but I got used to it. And even if the voice was not a violent one, there wasn't argumentative and confrontational, I still heard your voice. That's something I depended on. Now I'm out and about, and where are you? There's something missing. There's something missing. I don't know mother, father until you tell me mother, father. I don't know the difference. The chemical relationship with mother is there naturally, which is obvious why the children tend to gravitate more towards the mother. I've been connected there. Connected for 9 months. Right?
Right.
The relationship between you and I, the chemical piece, is that what? The chromosome. The 23 chromosomes that you contributed. So why would I not feel any disconnect? Because it brings it all together for me. You follow me? It brings it all together to me. You minimize the contribution that you really made when you just either walk away or you find yourself so locked and loaded into satisfying your id and not looking at the responsibility that you have of taking care of the child. Because that's what you're doing in essence. So we can sit here all day long and talk about how hateful she's being. Hurt people hurt people. Period. And when you look at the makeup, and that's why I gave you the document. When you look at the makeup of the human being, you begin to better understand yourself first. Right? Then you can better understand the makeup of the other individual. But you already know that. You already know women are different in thinking. We already know that. So why are we so preoccupied with trying to change a condition that is what it is? When you get mad, when you get angry, you ask yourself, why do you get angry about things? It has everything to do with how you, from here up, from here up. Everything. All the energy that you expel, exert in the course of trying to bring about change within a system that don't give a damn about you. Let's be real about this. This is about dollars. You are exerting all your energy into trying to change that system, when the system you should be focusing on is the family system. That's you, your child, and the mother of your child. That's the system you should be learning how to try to manipulate. But there's something keeping you from being able to do that. There's something keeping you from being able to do that. Ask yourself, why do you sit in the anger so long? Why do you sit in the resentment so long? Why is it you're just coming to the point now of being a little more reserved with dealing with that? Why are you so reserved? Why are you so agitated? And so on and so forth. But it has nothing to do with any of those things we're talking about in the class. It has everything to do with what I'm talking about now. We profess to know so much about ourselves, and we know very little about ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be real about that. We know very little about ourselves because we really don't know how we're made up. I had a conversation with somebody the other day. We were talking about being in Philadelphia. People come from all over the world to come to Philadelphia to visit. Tourism.
Mm-hmm.
We don't even know a damn thing about what we might know Betsy Ross's house.
Right. That's true.
Or Valley Forge.
That's very true. Yeah.
You don't even, like, we can't, listen. And I'm saying this to say that we're right here in Philadelphia. Most of us are born in Philadelphia. We go down to Center City all the time. Penn's Landing. Do you know what took place down Penn's Landing? Do you know what took place at the foot of Penn's Landing?
No, what?
No.
What did?
Follow up on Juneteenth and you'll find out. There's a whole lot of things that we don't even know about the city we live in.
Right.
Let alone what we even know about ourselves. The things that Tracy talked about last week in terms of stages of development, and she talked about in the preceding weeks about stages of development, these things we keep looking at and we keep applying it to our children. The key, the resolve to all of this is you. You're no different than me, I'm no different than you. I separated from mine. We went to court. The judge suggested we go sit outside the chambers because we seem like, I'll put the word seem, like two sensible people. And after 10 years of marriage, I finally sat down and listened to her. And there was no disagreement. I don't celebrate holidays, you got the holiday. I'm okay with every other weekend because I like to fly out and roll out. I'm good with that too. So it went from every other weekend, from 4 p.m. from Friday to 6 p.m. on Sunday, right? Cool. To, you can stop out whenever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Based on...
That's what mine is.
But listen, based on this, I changed how I dealt with her. I didn't have to go back and forth. I humbled myself. I got cussed out many times. I got hung up on many times. But I had to realize the impact that I had upon her when I walked out. Regardless of who was wrong about anything. Regardless of what the circumstances was. This is about my children. I want to be able to see my children.
But what if you stand is killing everything that you are?
It's not, but you're allowing it.
Or what about, like, with me and my daughter's mom, like, she started to hit me and stuff. And I'm like, I'm not going to have my child in the house where you got to be, like, it's already that, you know what I mean, you want to holler and stuff and follow me from room to room, but now you starting to put your hands on me and stuff. Like, I'm not doing that.
Okay, here's my question. Was she doing that when y'all met?
No.
Was she doing that when y'all engaged in sex?
No.
Was she doing that when she was pregnant?
No.
When did she start doing it?
And that's what she said. She said, you ain't take time to understand the hormonal changes I was going through when I was pregnant. I said, but those changes is detrimental to the family, though.
But what you have to look at is, you're going back to the id again. Because the id says, I want to be understood. The hell with understanding, I want to be understood. That's what I want you to begin to look at yourself differently. I want you to see yourself from a different perspective. Let's eliminate right now. This is a new world. I want you to come into this world of understanding self. Let's not ask the question anymore, why? Let's begin to ask the question, what can I do? Because if she wasn't that way before, things took place, and she gave you some of the reasons why. And when you look at what a woman goes through during the course of pregnancy, you'll come to understand some other things as well. Because there are a whole lot of hormonal changes, and we disregard that. We minimize that. And if you're not a woman, if you've not carried a child, you couldn't begin to understand. No matter how eloquent she could say it, you still couldn't understand it. You had your hand up?
But there's times when you got to make a commitment to the child, and you got to agree to disagree. and then you say we can't do it together. We need outside help.
Right.
And I think that's something that you
Absolutely.
can't be just agreeing with her every single time. And
No. I didn't say you don't have to agree.
yeah.
But again, we can be, like you said, we can agree to disagree. But what you have to begin to look at is, if you're dealing with a toxic situation, why are you in the toxic situation and battling back and forth? There's no back and forth. It takes two to argue.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, if you keep your focus on the child.
yeah.
If the conversation is going left, you don't have to bang on her. Listen, this is not going anywhere. We're beginning to go back and forth. I'm gonna talk to you later, okay? Don't get caught up in the. Well, wait a minute. I'm gonna talk to you later.
That's banging on her.
But listen, no. Banging on her is.
Don't say nothing at all. You just
But letting her know. Listen, this is not
Yeah.
being productive. I'm gonna talk to you later, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Bye, and hang up.
Some of which I do agree with what you were saying, because I know how my relationship was, almost 2 years ago. And it wasn't until I realized that it wasn't doing no good in reference to the back and forth and the cackling or whatever. So like you said, but I kind of, because I'm a Christian, and I had to realize that it wasn't getting nowhere in reference to how we was handling it before, or better yet, how I was impacting how it was being handled before. So I had to step back and I had to evaluate how things was going on. And believe it or not, even though I don't have the younger kids with me, I still feel more resolved because I'm handling them different than a previous approach. Like, I'm not argumentative. Whatever you say, if that's what you want. And now it's, like you just said, calling a little more. I mean, it's not there yet, all that other stuff, but it's a little better than it was previously because I had to think about it. She carried 2 twins. You know what I mean? She carried a daughter right after that. That must have took a lot. So I started, I guess, being empathetic towards where she was at and what she had to go through in reference to the pregnancies. And I guess that helped me to envision what she's going through now.
Read the last paragraph of that page. Can I read it out loud, please?
With so many competing forces, it is easy to see how conflict might arise between the ego and superego. Freud used the term ego strength to refer to the ego's ability to function despite these dual forces. A person with good ego strength is able to effectively manage these pressures, while those with too much or too little ego strength becomes too unyielding or too disruptive.
And just to add to what, and something what you just said, you never listen. And believe it or not, I didn't listen. I didn't pay attention to what her sensitivities was, because I thought she's supposed to have been like me, so to speak.
And I want you to look at the age that you were when you entered into this relationship. Okay? And I want you to take a look at it, because all y'all got smartphones and all stuff, and I want you to go, and I want you to read this, but I also want you to go look at the handout that Tracy gave you, and I want you to begin to look at stages of development. If you missed that, you just missed out. You also might get it.
Yeah, I'm like, damn.
I know, right? I know. So you know what I was talking to. All right, so, and I'm saying also to say, what you just said was, and like, I'm a Christian. Superego. Go down to superego and you look at what superego is. You also begin to look at some of the other content of your discussion about how you begin to make those changes. The ego. The ego manages the id. It manages the id. Now, depending on how your development was, as a child, right, your ability to get out of the total self-centeredness of the child may be impeded by a variety of things. Substance abuse was one of the things that was very significant in the stages of growth. It impedes the individual's ability to go through those stages. Because see, when you don't have those kind of, again, going back to chemicals, when you don't have that chemical, substance abuse or even medication and things like that, they're very, they monitor what they're giving the mother during the course of pregnancy. But when you start looking at introducing alcohol and drugs into the equation, right? You have changed the natural order of development. Your body, you will protect yourself no matter what. Something happens, you already protected. If something happens in your life, your parents separate, you in here begin to do something about that separation to the best of your knowledge. But there's another imbalance that begins to happen, or a balance that begins to happen within yourself, that you protect yourself automatically. You'll suppress it. You'll push it down somewhere. Because you begin to tell yourself certain things, and you'll be protected by it. And that's why I began this with, you may hear a song that'll bring up some memories, and sometimes you get tearful about it, sometimes you well up. When I hear Dance with My Father, I think about my father when he was murdered. But when I hear Heat Wave from back in the 70s, very, very difficult time for me. I was living in the streets by choice. You know, I had a real difficult time. So when I start hearing certain songs from the 70s, I get broke up. When I hear songs from the 60s, now, I wasn't grooving off of nothing in the 60s, or was I? My mother was. My father was. My father was a Sam Cooke fan.
Right.
So I'll hear music and don't recall events, but I'll hear some Sam Cooke stuff and get broke up. I put this diagram up here because I want you to begin to see that there's some significance to all of this. Everything about you is chemically based. How do we treat mental health conditions? Typically, medications. Right?
Right.
How do we treat headaches?
Medication.
Medication. Unless you learn how to use alternative methods. But medication, why? Why medication? Chemical. If you don't drink enough water, I can tell when I haven't drank enough water because I start getting drawn in the face. I'll realize that first. I'll be lightheaded and everything like that and wonder why I'm still like off kilter because I haven't drank enough water. But I'll notice it more in my face than the uneasiness. If you don't drink water, you start becoming dehydrated, you'll feel it. The chemical imbalance. If you're drinking too much coffee, if you're drinking too much soda, if you're drinking too much certain things, you'll feel it. Because you're paying attention. And you understand that concept. But what you're not understanding is the concept of the psychological imbalance, which still has to do with chemical. And that's what you need to begin to understand. When you're getting angry about something, it has something to do with something inside of you. When you have an inability to manage that id, there's something that you're not doing to better manage your id. And that's why I asked you to read the last paragraph. So it's not about what Sabir is saying. It's about research. That's from Freud. So you read that, and you look at, you learn about yourself. Because all those things happened real early. They happened real early. And they're still happening. You have a lot of unresolved, which is why you continue to go back and forth in some of the situations that you do, because the id is telling you, you're going to get this done, we're going to get it our way, and before you know it, the child will be graduating from college, and you are still going back and forth with your mother because you haven't even resolved that stuff within yourself. And it has everything to do with how you were raised. I had a mother who was very firm. You see, I write on the board pretty good, don't I?
Yes.
Yeah, you know why?
Why?
Because my mother had us sit down. They wasn't extra credit. Oh, you ain't got nothing else to do. Sit down. You ain't got nothing else to do. Speaking, all those things are very significant. And when I'm around my mother, the expectation is still the same. It's still the same. At 52, almost 53 years old, I don't use profanity in front of my mother. And it had, again, you're talking about the id, the ego, and super-ego. The super-ego, we're talking about morality. Why not? Why not? Why don't you use that?
Respect.
Well, I'm getting, but I'm glad you came to that conclusion for me. What I want you to begin to do is look at why are you still where you're at in regards to this relationship. The excuses are over. This is about a child. And you need to expeditiously bring some resolve within yourself about whatever these conditions are and start moving forward and focusing on the child. Yes, get the information for how to better navigate through the court system. Get that. But what you really need to begin to get is this. Your children are still growing. Your children are still developing. Your children are still internalizing all of this that's going on right now. And they're going to become you. And they're going to become her. They're going to become themselves. So what contribution are you making? And that's what you have to begin to look at. And every contribution that you make to everything you come into contact with, everybody you come into contact with, you know what it has to do with? You. So everything from my childhood came into all of my marriages, came into my workplace environment, comes into comes into this environment and interacting with you. It comes into everything. I'm bringing life. All of my life is before you. It didn't go away. It didn't go away. When people talk about substance abuse and they talk about when people go back to use, when people relapse, it's like they never left. It's a fact. You are making these changes in life. You are making the necessary adjustments. Why? Because you have to manage that id. And part of development, part of the stages and ages of development, you're supposed to be doing certain things at a certain point of life for a reason. You hear people say that as I get older, when I get past 50, I begin to get closer to God. And you hear people start talking more about God and the relationship with God. But you don't hear that out of a 5-year-old unless they are conditioned in an environment where we're talking about God. Why? Because what's the focus of a child? Me, 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 me. Me, 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 me. I want, I want, I want, I want. And some of you still are me, me, me. Because you haven't addressed that. Therefore, your id is running rampant. It's running rampant. Last thing, and then we're going to close up. And I'll give Tracy a second. She has something she needs to cover. What we're going to go into next week is going to deal with puberty. This is real important. Because it's going to have a great bearing on who you are, your sexuality, why you made some of the choices you made, based on where it began. For me, sex started at 13. Grown woman, she was 21 years old. At that time, it was the best thing since sliced bread. For me. Until I started seeing my relationships and the impact that my sexuality had on every relationship I had. Now that's my story. I don't know what yours is. But nobody told me anything about what was happening down here. Other than, yo, you can, come here, girl. Bring her, oh, get him. And there was even some arrangements made. Yo, you gonna, come here, girl. I know Sarah down the street. We gonna hook you up. If you go online, look at my Black Male Development Symposium presentation I did on male development, and I talked about puberty. This young man in there, 11 years old, his older brother brought the girl to the crib and made him have sex with her. We use sex real loosely, but we do that for a reason. Outside of the id, there's things that we influence the id to continue to be out of control in our own behavior. We do it for a variety of reasons. And Freud talks a lot about the psychosexual development, and the relationship is really important to understand. But I really want you to begin to internalize this stuff. Internalize it, because we intellectualize stuff as men. We'll figure it all out real quick. I got this. And we do have it.
Right.
Tracy, you have anything you want to?
There's so many things you just talked about. Something you said, Sharif, made me think, because I think sometimes too when we think about looking at ourselves, sometimes the assumption is that, I think especially in contentious relationships, we tend to think of, oh, if I look at myself, that means I'm at fault, that I'm to blame. And I think anytime we're doing this work, I think it's helpful to take that off. Because you said something, Sharif, about, if you're in a relationship and somebody's hitting you, that's detrimental to the relationship. And I would say it absolutely is detrimental to the relationship. So when you're looking at yourself, it's not to say that I should take that, but it's to examine what am I doing to allow that energy into my space and to not address that energy as it occurs. Because I'm thinking in my head, there's no way we would tell a woman, well, if you're in a relationship with a man and he hits you, you just need to figure out maybe he just had a tough day. No, that's the excuse that, she's telling herself to stay in that relationship. We would absolutely say, no, there is something about you that you need to own that lets that go, to say, I deserve more. And I think oftentimes we don't say that to men because the assumption is that, well, you're a man. You got confidence. You got it together. But the reality is that anytime we're doing self-reflective work, it's looking at where we went wrong in the things that we aggressed against other people, but also where did we go wrong in allowing people to aggress against us in wrong ways, in inappropriate ways. And so I think that's the only thing I'm thinking about in terms of doing the work with the id and the ego and the super-ego, because the one thing I like about Freud is that he's very clear that there is no right or wrong in terms of the id versus the super-ego. The reality is that you have to have a balance of both. The id is the person that's the selfish, completely selfish if you're fully in id, but without the id, you will be completely selfless, and you will allow other people to completely run you over, because your super-ego is like, no, you must follow this exact way of being. And the ego's job is to make sure that the person is protected without being completely disrespectful of other people and the other significant relationships in that person's life. And so to me, I think that's the important thing to remember in this process that we all do of personal growth and development, to really try to strike that balance in a way that makes sense. Which is why, I know a lot of people kind of were like, what, when I brought it up, but that's why I started what I did as far as looking at values. Because if we don't know what we value with sex or with whatever, then we do set ourselves up to either let somebody else's values overtake our situation, or our values become so alienating to other people that we're not able to build relationships because we're so focused on what we want and we don't care about anybody else. So that's all I was going to say about that. As far as puberty goes, my job is to talk about the biological stuff. So I have a quiz that I was told to create for you guys for homework.
She wasn't told.
So I'm going to pass this out.
Y'all need homework.
But since I know y'all don't do homework, I will build an incentive.
No, we do homework.
I will build an incentive into it for those who bring it back. So if you want to take it, I know you may not do that.
Did everybody sign in?
Yes.
Please make sure you sign in.
And it's just some questions to see what you know about the process of...
And y'all really need to get better with homework. If this was a court case, y'all be packing that stuff up. Y'all have an envelope, manila folder. That's gonna be labeled critical. Come on now.
I got my manila folder.
I know Sharif keep it real business person, so you got that.
No, because ain't none of my homework done. No, I still got a whole bunch of blank homework.
Listen, this stuff is real important.
It is.
It's real important because listen, I don't want to see nobody book. You know what I'm saying? And they booking us. That's the reality for a variety of reasons. Listen, don't forget that my book came out, Code Black. If you go to the website, www.daddysrighthere.net, it'll take you to the book. It'll take you to the YouTube video. And after you watch the promotional video, the thing pops right up to tell you where to order the book from. I don't be playing. I'll make sure y'all get all the information. But answer these questions. No, listen. No, see, don't do the man thing. Y'all doing the man thing.
Well, it's easy.
I want you to go put it in your mouth. Go home, put it in your mouth.
Marinate for a minute.
Marinate for a minute. And listen, because this is about personal freedom. Seriously.
I'm not actually serious.
Yeah, this is about freedom. This is about your freedom. The Bible, the Quran, the Torah, they tell you, you got to save yourself first. Then you save your family.
You can only save yourself first.
You got to save yourself first. You can't go trying to save your family with bad information. For real. So save yourself first and go save your family. And that's what we do in the Fathers Club. We save ourselves first so we can save our family. We save our family, we save our community. We save our community, we make a great impact on the world. And you got to start looking at life differently.
Yeah.
But you might not be in that stage of development yet, so I don't know. But thank y'all, and please bring the homework back. And so we need to really get better with that because we're using funds that we don't have to make sure we get copies for stuff, and you can build a repertoire of stuff and pass it on to your child.
You said WW, I'm sorry, for your book?
Daddy's right here. I'll give you a card.
Right here.
I'll give you a card.
All right.
All right, so thank y'all. We wrapped up on time. Let's make sure we police our areas real well, please.
Yeah, thanks.